what I want to show you is that being critical is not about just criticizing and commenting aggressively from afar. And critical thinking is actually practical. And just being critical and rejecting everything is not critical thinking. It's too easy. Critical thinking means engaging meaningfully with the world, making decisions that are sometimes difficult. So we talked about critical thinking, and as I said, it's about lifting the veil of rhetoric, seeing things beyond the speech and the words, and it's also about engaging with multiple framing. Multiple framing is this idea that some situations are complex and they require to see them with that complexity in mind and not reducing that. And within that, wicked problems is now seen as being what leadership and strategy is about in companies. And this is the idea that there are some problems that are too complex, too uncertain, and with too many different points of view to actually engage with thinking, okay, let's find the solution to the wicked problems. I'm going to use the current tension and military deployment of Russia in Ukraine as an example of the rippling effect of the wicked problems of international business. I will not get a position about Russia and Ukraine. This is not my expertise, and it is not the topic here. What I want to show you is how something that looks political, geopolitical, and military has rippling effect for people who are in business and managers and CEOs and leaders of companies, which, and that's my aim, I want to show you that being critical and being able to engage with these very complex topics is actually absolutely necessary for future managers and future leaders of companies. You cannot disconnect yourself from the world and say, oh, I'm just a company in the markets. You are connected with all the other companies on the market, but also with the countries, the citizens, and geopolitics and this movement. And therefore, you need to engage with them. So I want to talk to you a bit about right now a sector that is under a lot of fire and tension, which is the oil and gas industry. So British Petroleum, BP, has come under a lot of pressure here in the UK for its ties with Russian companies, especially since Moscow's military deployment in Ukraine. BP has been working closely with Russia and with Russian companies for the past 30 years. Some of these Russian companies are state-owned or very close to oligarchs that are in the socio-political elite of the country. This is the structure of the Russian economy, meaning that if you want to engage with these companies, you are dealing with people who have close ties with the government. Criticisms have gone up since the annexion of Crimea by Russia in 2014. So this tension around BP have been slowly growing over the past 5 years. In particular, the pressure have come from the UK government this time, and rather strongly. BP has an historical stake of 20% in a company called Rosneft, which is a state oil company, and they've been partnered with them for nearly 10 years. It's a partnership that, from a business and a strategy point of view, makes sense if you're in the oil and gas business, and it was even supported by previous governments and previous business leaders. But as you can imagine, the UK government is now looking closely at this kind of partnership. And a few days ago, BP's CEO was summoned by the UK business secretary to discuss their involvement with the region. So this 20% stake, what does it mean, and what is the impact for today's situation of BP? So the CEO, Bernard Looney, very quickly said he was resigning from Rosneft boards. So did another director of BP. However, as the Financial Times reported, and I'm quoting the Financial Times here, BP did not specify how and when it might divest the Rosneft stake. It could write off the shareholding, sell it back to Rosneft, or find another buyer. And I'm still quoting the FT here. Analysts have speculated that a state-backed Chinese or Middle Eastern group might be interested in the shareholding, but it is thought that BP could struggle to find a bidder. So here the issue is, even if you agree that your ties and if you put yourself in the position of the CEO Bernard Looney and the board, even if you yourself recognize that these ties with a Russian state oil company are problematic, selling a 20% stake in a company is not something that you can do just that easily, meaning that it's likely that it's going to stay in your books for quite a while. And to be honest, even if BP was able to sell its stakes to a state-backed Chinese or a Middle Eastern group, that would still be something that some could view as problematic because of the geopolitical ramification of that. So you see, and they would make some money, so they could be accused of making profit out of an international crisis. So selling these assets under so much scrutiny is not just something that you could do just like that. Moreover, beyond these stakes, BP has a lot of joint ventures with Rosneft in Russia. 3 in particular are very strategic, and they were also logical to be developed back a year or 2 years ago. And the impact is far from neutral here. And the FT reports also that already in 2021, BP reported profits of more than $2.4 billion from the shareholding and collected $640 million in dividends. So from a purely financial standpoint, getting rid of all that is far from neutral. It means your board and your shareholders have to be behind you. They have to be willing to take a hit from this move in the name of values and geopolitics and political pressure with the UK government. So you see that, you know, just saying we're going to remove ourselves from the country might be easier from companies and others. Already we know that LVMH, Louis Vuitton, for example, McDonald's and Starbucks have removed themselves from the country, but it's not the same to have some activity in a country is not exactly the same as having strategic partnerships that have been developed. I'm not minimizing the commitment of McDonald's, Starbucks, or Louis Vuitton. I'm saying that this is not exactly a comparable situation. But BP says that they are withdrawing from this and they are trying actively to withdraw from this partnership. And this has rippling effects. The decision of BP puts pressure on other actors of the sector, Shell, Total Energy, ExxonMobil, for example. And that's simply because Russia is the world's 3rd largest oil producer and the biggest exporter of gas in the world. So it's very hard to avoid Russia or to be separated from Russia if you are involved in oil and gas. The head of global energy strategy at JP Morgan, Christian Malek, is quoted in the FT saying what BP has done should put the rest of the industry's feet on the fire. So them making a move, or for example, Equinor in Norway making a move to cut ties with Russian partners, has a rippling effect, and then Shell is called to action saying, okay, you have to do something. And within all these companies, Total, the French company, is known to be the oil company that has the most ties with Russia and Russian companies in general. They are working with their strategic partner, which is called Novatek, on several ventures in the north of the country for the shortcut that they are trying to build, and they own 20% of Novatek, with which they're working on this project. So even though Total did have an official statement criticizing Russia's military aggression, they did not talk about an exit or withdrawal for the moment. Russia accounts for 15% of Total's oil and gas production. 15%. So even if they wanted to cut ties, that would require massive logistics and taking a hit. Francis Perrin, who's an academic and an expert in international relations, said to Le Monde, and give me a little leeway here because I'm translating, Total Energy is in a very difficult position after BP and Equinor's decision. If the group hangs on with Russia, it might be because it has committed significant long-term investment already. So you see that there have been moves already made. This might also be linked to what the political world is asking from these companies. So I told you that the UK government summoned the CEO of BP. It seems that so far, even though the French government and the EU are extremely critical of what's happening in Russia and are looking for ways to sanction and to punish the country and its leader, they have not yet put the same pressures on oil and gas because of their dependency toward Russia. So it might be explaining why so far the oil and gas industry doesn't have the same commitment to other sectors. What I want to show you is that beyond the moralistic outrage, which is important, and we need to talk about values. Here, if you like, if you look at the flows of international business, and in that case, in particular, the flows of oil and gas all around the world, and this map is already a bit old, but you can see that Russia is a key part of that network. And given the dependency of most countries on oil and gas for basic needs, it will not be that easy, and it cannot be expected to be that easy for companies to withdraw from it. Doesn't mean that they shouldn't do anything, but you see that all of a sudden, if you are in the board or even an executive with BP, with Exxon, with Total, all of a sudden you have to position yourself on a global map, because if you withdraw today from long-term partnership with Russian companies, you cannot just reactivate them in 2 years. So it means that you have to reposition your entire company, which is a massive multinational company, toward another strategic horizon. So you see that by definition, being involved in international business means that every time something moves somewhere on the board, other pieces are being moved as well. So the job of someone who's running a company or are involved in the leadership of this company is to engage with the complexity of these situations, these wicked problems that will never have one easy solution. And critical thinking, bringing this ability to see the problems and the issues and the situation from multiple perspectives, what I call multiple framing in another point, is absolutely key here in order to have a strategic thinking approach of the situations. And it is the case even if you're not as big as BP or Total, but if you are evolving in several countries in international business, you are already required to think about these situations critically from multiple perspectives.